Welcome to IPT2. And this week, nutrition is key. So, as a topic, nutrition will always come up quite a lot when we are talking about different aspects of fitness. Nutrition will always be key to that. When we look at the population that is currently training in the UK, I've said this before, we're looking at 15 to 20% of the population that actually goes to the gym, that actually does some form of training or sport. That's not a lot. We've still got 80% of people to reach. And I really do hope one day that everybody is afforded the time and ability to go and have exercise as part of their life. But the one thing we do all do is eat. And for me, this is a massive topic of conversation. I have conversations around nutrition almost on a daily basis with clients, students, people who ask me questions about stuff or make statements. I get a lot of people who make statements, especially people who don't know about nutrition and maybe don't know who I am as well. And I'll hear some silly things uh, like the anabolic window. I heard somebody talking about that today in the gym. They were talking about the anabolic window and going and getting a Nando's so they could get that anabolic window. Now, the anabolic window is a part truth. You should be replenishing your muscles after a strenuous workout with good nutrition, yes. But there's no 30-minute window. I would probably say if you're trying to help your muscles, you should probably eat within the first hour of training. But even that is something that's been debunked as well. But it is true that the nutrients in the protein will help you. It is true because guess what? Those nutrients will be going to the muscles a lot of the time. And what is not needed will be going into storage. So replenishing the glycogen in your muscles. But that this is the thing that there was for so many years that concept of the anabolic window, so we could be selling people protein shakes. That's what it was. And that's why nutrition is key because we need to understand it better as a society, not just as personal trainers, but everybody out there because you put things in your mouth. Now, when you look at physiques going back 100 years, so just before World War One, where was obesity? We didn't have it. Yes, there was people who were like severely overweight, but it was nowhere near the type we have now. When we look at not just pre World War One, because obviously that was 100 years ago. Now we were looking at people who had different ways of eating back then as well. What we tend to see is a lot of people who were eating meats, who had strenuous jobs, like physical jobs, a lot of physical labour. There wasn't so much in the way of office jobs back then. There was people who were eating lots of butter and milk and cheeses. So people were getting the fats, the carbs came from potatoes and vegetables. There was a lot more vegetable consumption with most meals. So we can't look back at 100 years and say their diet was better because science has come a long way. We should actually know what's better for the body now. That's why we have the supplementation industry. Because if somebody is lacking in something, they can get the supplement for it. But we don't know what we're lacking in a lot of the time. And we just listen to the adverts on TV and say, well, I identify with the way what that's telling me I feel, so I should probably get that supplement. And the terms are so generic that you're just wasting your money. You know, that we need to look at supplementation as what it is, supplemental to the diet. If you're not getting enough calcium in your diet, sure, you should probably be taking a calcium uh, supplementation. But we all eat food. So what's happened to us in the past 100 years? Well, we know for a fact that the sugar giants have paid off studies, scientists, to say that things are good and bad. We know that studies around the world were tampered with and paid off. Some studies were actually done by the big companies to say that's not good for you. If we look at, for instance, the the whole farming industry, when we look at Kellogg's cornflakes and Weetabix and stuff that most people will have for breakfast in the UK, that wasn't breakfast 100 years ago. So what happened? Well, farming and big industry happened. In the Industrial Revolution, they had lots of corn that they needed to use. They had all these plantations now that they could use all these things for, and they came up with cornflakes and Rice Krispies and all these other little things that you'll now have for breakfast. But guess what? Those replaced things like bacon. They replaced things like eggs, pancakes. They replaced things like porridge. Not everybody likes porridge, although it has made a comeback. But yeah, it replaced these things because nowadays we had all this surplus of stuff. We had these big industrial people who could pay for all these studies to say this is better for you, this is what you should be having. That we changed. We took debate, and consumers, believe it or not, are not the smartest of people. They're not. And I'm a consumer, you're a consumer. Probably if you're listening to this, you're a consumer. We're all consumers these days, to be honest. So when I say consumers are not smart, I don't mean it in a derogatory sense. I mean that we don't check the facts. So another example of this would be, I think it was Burger King. I might need to be fact checked on this. But I think in the 50s or 60s, McDonald's were really booming, and another burger chain wanted to get in on it. So instead of doing a quarter pounder, they did a third pounder. So obviously, a third is bigger than a quarter. But the American public didn't understand it, and it didn't do well at all. They were getting more for their money, and they didn't understand it. So because they didn't understand it and didn't want to understand it, they ended up that branch of burger chains didn't do well. I'm sure it was Burger King, but yeah, they didn't do well, so their profits were down, and essentially they just didn't understand from a marketing perspective why a third burger was not more popular than a quarter pounder burger because the public was getting more for their money. Now, when we look at marketing today, how many times do you see food marketed in such a way that it's tempting? Now, there's little tricks of the trade you probably don't know. So I'm going to take these directly from experience and from knowledge and from what we teach on the course. When you go to the supermarket, you are marketed always from the minute you step in the door. From the minute you step in the door, the bakery is usually the first thing they'll have close to the door, so you can smell the bread, smell the bakeries and the sweetness, so that you get hungry. Because when you're hungry, you buy more. That's why you never go to the supermarket hungry. Go to the supermarket on a full stomach. Go to the supermarket with a list of what you actually need, and you will never over purchase. Now, next thing that they do, what they want to sell to you will be at head height. How many times have you found yourself looking for something you wanted that's on a lower shelf? That's because they know all those items that you want, they can put on the lower shelf. But the things that they want you to buy will be at head height because it's easily accessible. An example of this would be when I was in a supermarket recently and their own brand of soup and the cheaper soups were at head height, but I wanted a certain type of chicken soup, and because it was a more popular one, it was on the bottom shelf. You'll see this a lot of the time. If you open your eyes, the things that are more common for people to buy will usually be lower down on the shelves because they know that you'll go down to get them if you really want them. But if you don't really want them or you're looking to buy surplus stuff, they'll usually have that in the higher up shelves at head height so that it's easier for you to get to. You'll also notice at the end of every aisle, there's usually a basket that's got deals on it. Or at the end of most aisles is where you'll find deals a lot of the time. That's usually where things will be marked down and maybe put into the section that's there. You'll also find that most supermarkets guide you around the way they want you to be guided round. One of the first things you'll always get in most supermarkets is the fruit and vegetables, because most people will just pick up what they need from there, or they'll just go straight by it. And then you're directed into the things that they want you to buy after that. Usually they'll keep things together that you know are paired so that you buy them. So, for instance, one of the supermarkets I visited recently had meats and then also had butters and cheeses close to each other for making sandwiches. These are tactics, these are not done by coincidence. Why do you think coffee, tea, and sugars are all kept together? They usually have the cake aisle next to the coffees and sugars nowadays. You usually have the eggs in with the breakfast stuff. It's all done on purpose to try get you to buy food. So when you're picking your nutrition, you need to be really thoughtful. Personally, I've got a very, very easy nutrition schedule. I prefer having eggs in the morning. I have 4 eggs. Sometimes I'll have an extra protein shake if I feel I need a little bit of an extra boost for that day. But on the whole, usually I'll have 4 eggs for breakfast, done different ways to keep it interesting. I will sometimes have toast with those eggs, or I will have porridge with those eggs. And that gives me my carbs, my fats, and my protein for the morning. Later in the day, I tend to have more protein heavy meals. I'm a simple eater. I prefer it that way. But that works for what my goals are for building muscle, for achieving enough energy to live in the strenuous activities that I need to do. What do you need your food for? Now, I'm not saying food can't be enjoyed. That's not what I'm saying. But when we have goals in mind, when we're trying to change the body, we should really be eating for that change and then try to make that change sustainable. And what do I mean by sustainable? Well, if I wanted to lose body weight, I could quite easily take some of the carbs out of my diet and some of the protein out of my diet to create a deficit. I would maybe add in a little bit more exercise, and then that would give me even a bigger deficit. Usually, when you have a bit of both, that's where you create a good deficit that can be manageable. You'll still eat enough food to feel satisfied, but you'll still be in a calorie deficit to help with the weight loss. If I want to build muscle, I can add more protein, I can add more fats, I can make sure I've got. When you're building muscle, yes, you need energy, so you can decide where you get your energy from. Is it going to be fats or carbohydrates? I tend to try up my fats a little bit, so sometimes I'll have more steak than having as much chicken as I usually do. So, nutrition is key to your goals. Nutrition is going to be key to achieving anything you want to do in life when it comes to like your energy balances. Some people might feel that they don't have energy in the morning and they rely on the caffeine kick they get every day. I, for instance, am one of those people, and that's not a good thing as I sip on my coffee. Caffeine is good because it has beneficial effects. It does. But if it's what you rely on to wake up every day, there is something underlyingly wrong. Could be that you're not getting enough sleep. It could be that you are having issues around other things in life, stress management, cortisol management. Could be many things. But we need to look at that and we need to solve the problem. And nutrition can be helpful in solving problems. You know, if for instance you're trying to get your circadian rhythm back for going to sleep, it could be a good thing to start your prep for going to sleep with a snack because that can start the rhythm. That can be the point where you have your snack, you brush your teeth, you get into bed, you go to sleep instead of there's no snack, there's nothing going on, you've had your dinner, you don't eat for X amount of hours, and then you go to sleep, and maybe it's that snack that helps, just lets you drift off to sleep. Again, this is me just being hypothetical with stuff, and I suppose if I had some individual that needed a help, I could take a look at those aspects of their nutrition and help them maybe. But certainly, nutrition can help so many things. Obviously, your cells are regenerated by what you eat. So, looking back at that information I gave you on what's happened over the past 100 years and how we have been almost indoctrined to eat all this processed crap. I mean, when I initially did my deep dive into nutrition as a young PT, I found some really upsetting things that are in food. And once you know they're in there, you can't unknow that stuff. There's glue in foods. Some of your sauces that are 0 calorie sauces are made with a gum, and that gum can actually really give you stomach upsets. Uh, Anything that's 0 calorie is not actually 0 calorie because it has to have some sort of calories in it. It can't be 0 calories. There's no such thing as a negative calorie food. Asparagus is probably the closest thing you come to that. Maybe even cucumber. But when we look at these different things that are out there, low fat, what does that actually mean? Low fat, 0 calories. That if you actually look at the terms that, and remember the UK is a little bit more stricter with things than other countries. If you look at the percentage it has to be considered low fat, I think it only has to have a 2% drop in fat to be considered a low fat product. So if your product, I'm going to take yogurt here because that's typically where you'll see things like low fat, but we see it on all sorts of items. It's just the first one that came to my head. If your yogurt was 30% fat and now it's 28% fat because it's had 2% of its fat taken away, that could be considered low fat. It's a low fat yogurt because it's now met the conditions that the food board have said that's what low fat is. Low fat or 0 fat as well, that's concerning because what substances are they putting in to make it taste the same? Because a lot of the time, food, the fat that's in the food is the thing that gives it its taste. Think about it, a steak. If you have a steak that's got some good fat on it, for instance, the difference between a sirloin steak and let's say a T-bone steak, where you've got different cuts, they may have different fats on it. Sirloin tends to have a big, thick bit of fat on the side. The sirloin, a lot of the time, will not be as nice tasting to some people because there's no fat running through it. It's a leaner cut of meat. So when you understand that the fat gives things its taste, what are they putting in? And it's chemicals. It is all chemicals. It is all additives and preservatives and numbers and again, look at the back of any packet of 0 fat or low fat food, and you'll see all the stuff that they've put into it to make it taste the same. It's horrendous for the body. How can our body process these things? Uh, here's a good thing for you. A lot of your ready-made meals, in order to keep them like still preserve the food, to keep them so you can eat them over a long period of time, and to freeze them for a long period of time as well, because that's typically what they do. One of the ingredients they use is tree bark, the properties of tree bark. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never tried eating tree bark. I don't think it's going to taste very nice. But at the same time, I do understand that tree bark is not going to go through my digestive system very well. So if it's in food already, that's just another thing that's going to waste. This could be a really big talk on different stuff, but I think really the idea I'm trying to get across is that nutrition should be a lot more simple than we make it out to be. And typically we look at foods as we'll just buy it because it's cheap. We'll just buy it because it tastes good. We'll just buy it because I want some chocolate. We'll just buy it because of this, that, or the other thing. We don't actually look at how good it is actually for us a lot of the time when we're making our purchases. We let marketing really get into our heads. And in all honesty, we probably should be doing a lot better as a society by now. Like I said, 100 years ago, we ate better. And if we could just figure out how to not have all these marketing ploys to get you to eat crap, we would have a lot more people who are healthy or healthier. We wouldn't have the obesity crisis we have, because we wouldn't be eating the crap that they sell us. Now, I'm not saying I don't like some of the food that's not good for you. By all means, usually the food that's not good for you is the stuff that tastes the best. But I can't, in all consciousness, have that all the time. I love pizza. It's not bad for you. I've always said this, but a Domino's is bad for you. A Pizza Hut is bad for you. But if you go and get the ingredients and make a pizza and have fresh tomato on it and fresh cheese and you create your own pizza, that's going to be good, wholesome, and healthy. And let's face it, the Mediterranean has got one of the highest living numbers in the world. When we look at there's only specific zones in the world that have a high count of people over 100, and the Mediterranean is usually one of them. And they eat pizza, they eat pasta, and they eat olives, and they have lots of oils, and their diet's quite high in fat. But all their ingredients are fresh. They eat lots of tomatoes, they eat lots of fruits and vegetables. Maybe there's something to be learned from that. And again, maybe that's not going to help you if you're into fitness. But if you're into health and longevity and being good for yourself, then that is going to be the thing that helps you. So I would take a guess at what you are trying to eat and why you're trying to eat it, and try to figure out what's going to be best for you moving forward. The one cornerstone of your diet should be figuring out what's sustainable. And that's something that we don't do enough of. Whenever we're looking at people in this industry as personal trainers, we tend to say, well, change this, change that, change this. You need to stop eating this, stop eating that, and do that. It has to be a change process with those type of things. But the cornerstone of it all should be what is sustainable for the client. And if that is sustainable, then what changes need to be made so that the next thing can be sustainable, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, until they have a diet that is completely sustainable for their goals. And then this is a very important thing, and personal trainers listen up for this one. Once your client has reached their goal, you then need to help them with a maintenance part of their nutrition. The maintenance part of their nutrition is going to be key to keeping them where they are. It's as simple as that. That's what maintenance is. We're trying to maintain the weight they're at, the size they're at, the way they are. So we have them having that consistent diet for that. not just some random piece of advice that, oh yeah, you're done now, just keep eating the way you are. No, let's take a look and let's see, is the next few weeks sustainable? A client should not finish their goals and just be off on their own. We should be looking at helping them manage themselves into maintenance. Now, maybe they stop training with you, but I care and I would want my clients to do that. So, I'm going to try sum up what I've just talked about because there's maybe a lot of stuff jumbled in there to do with nutrition. Again, feel free to check the facts on some of the things I've said. I don't have the time to go and look up everything just now for this podcast, but I'm pretty sure all of the stuff I've said is true because I've seen it all. I've seen the articles on how the big companies have uh, been trying to doctrine people over the years to buying what they want to buy. The same thing happened with cigarettes back in the day as well. So we need to be more conscious as a society. That's one of the main takeaway points. We need to make sure that we can find something that we can consistently do when it comes to nutrition. We need to eat for our goals. Now, goals change over time. So, whenever your goals do change and your nutrition has to follow with it, try to make sure that you are having the correct energy balances and so on. And probably one of the biggest things to remember is that we all eat food. One bad meal doesn't make a bad diet. One good meal does not make a good diet either. Diet is not a bad word. And what you eat is going to be 70% of the process. It's just how it is. And unfortunately, if there's any general population listening to this, not just personal trainers, it's what you do outside of the gym that matters most. Not that hour you're with the personal trainer, it's the rest of the time. And if you can nail that, you'll be able to nail your goals. And for the personal trainers out there, help your clients understand that. Help your clients understand that the way they eat is going to dictate the outcome. The 23 hours outside of the gym are far more important than that hour that they're with you. Sleep, eating, daily activity, neat, all those other things that happen outside of the training sessions, that's what really gets the job done. So, until next time, guys, please eat well. Please take care of yourself. And if there is anything you want to discuss about nutrition, please let us know. And if you are really interested in nutrition and like the way we talk about stuff, then please take a look at our nutrition CPD. Till next time, guys, take care, eat well, and peace out.